Hey guys, it's Muffin, and I just wanted to go over a quick little video here today. They just went over the patch notes for this new update that comes out tomorrow on TFT. 12.6, I believe it is. Yeah. This is going to change the meta a lot, I think. like they hard nerfed a bunch of like crazy people and that people were just spamming, like Malzahar, Aurelia, and then they just buffed a couple of things that might be more usable. I've tried a Swain build before. He just did not feel good at all, and Caitlyn now is supposed to be feeling a bit better. But they nerfed a whole lot of stuff, and the whole game is just going to change tomorrow, which is cool because I think everyone was kind of getting tired of Aurelia, and as a lot of the AD champs, a lot of AD got nerfed. Anyways, I just kind of wanted to go over some of like the major patch notes as well as some of my predictions for where the meta is going to shift, because I have a couple of thoughts about that. I'm not going to go over everything, just kind of like some of the things that I think are most important. There's a lot, and you don't really need to know everything to play TFT. I think it's mostly just the ebbs and flows and the feeling of where everything's going to be going. Malzahar did get nerfed, especially Synaptic, so maybe Malzahar's not going to feel as good anymore. I think also the best item now on him now is Shogun's rather than blue buff, because they increase his mana cap. But yeah, I think we're going to shift more towards an AP meta, and it's going to be a little bit slower fights, which is kind of cool because I think a lot of champions were not getting utilized that just, I don't know, felt weird, right? I think Swain was one of the most useless champs in the game for like a while. So if you already were like a RE player, I think this definitely does benefit you a lot. So these are just a couple of interface changes. You can now press A on your keyboard to toggle like who you're watching, as well as S. You can now cycle between like all the things on the right that show you who did the most healing damage or who took the most damage, which is just good for people who don't like to click. I'm a clicker, but if you're a keyboard hotkeys guy, then that's for you. So basically something that they did is a lot of augments kind of like didn't scale very well into the late game, and they were really only used for like early game. These were kind of like your Luden's Echo was kind of like a early tempo kind of build, and was really good on like a Corki or a Lucian, and it was only good for like maybe up until stage like end of stage 3. But they're trying to scale them now. So like with Electrocharge, say, this is whenever you got damage dealt to you that was critical damage. It would do 50 damage to a unit nearby. So starting at stage 2, it'll do 50. And then at stage 3 it'll do 65, stage 4 it'll do 80, and 95. So now this is kind of what this means, is the later in the game these will actually do more and more damage so that they stop being useless in if it's not early game, because 90 damage is like practically nothing when you got a Cho'Gath with 8,000 health. But I mean 180 is significantly more. And Luden's Echo is kind of the same, where instead of it doing like 70 damage, admittedly it is a little bit weaker because it did a flat 100 throughout the entire game, and now it does 70 during stage 2, 90 during stage 3, but 110 during stage 4, and 130 during stage 5. So they do scale up, which is always nice, but it would just be more useful in the late game while being slightly less useful in the early game, which I think is how this should work. It shouldn't be OP early, and it should be useful later. Innovator Heart was made into a gold augment, so it's going to be a little less likely to get them, whereas Innovator Soul was removed. Thank you. It's just too overpowered, man. The amount of times I walk into like a guy who just randomly got Innovator Soul, and he's just got this massive dragon that feels so undeserved. You don't have to work for it, man. It feels so bad, and it's just gone. It's entirely gone, which I think is healthy for the game. They mentioned on Mortdog's channel that it just didn't feel good, and not all augments or traits should be treated the same, which I 100% agree. Yeah, no, Innovator was just like super easy to win, especially because it's so easy to plug in, and you could get 5 Innovators so easily, and then you could just, like with this, you could remove 2 of your bad Innovators. Like maybe you're singed and put an actually good frontline. Share the Socialite Spotlight was also changed. This is when it made like almost like a big hexagon around the 1 hex, and I think a lot of people didn't realize that the center hex where the normal Socialite Spotlight was, it would get 100% of the bonuses from Socialite, but every other hex would get more. So the center Socialite Spotlight was actually worse. It was the worst spotlight. And I don't think a lot of people noticed that, and it was kind of confusing. So they just kind of reduced it so that all the hexes do the same to reduce confusion, as well as giving your entire team the Socialite benefit. Kind of a little overpowered, so they made this a little bit less overpowered, which I agree with. I think this is fun. I think one of the cool things is they also made so small, make your Yordles smaller, which just seems so cute. I can't wait to come across someone with this. I don't really play Yordles anymore, but I think this is going to be the cutest thing in the world. It's so adorable. It's kind of like how Cho'Gath will be getting bigger. Imagine someone with a massive Cho'Gath going against a so small Yordles team. I hope that they get smaller the more Yordles you have on the board. That would be so cool. That would be so cool. I don't think that's how it works, but it would be awesome. They're also making Enforcer only 3 units, which is cool. Basically, now you aren't going to be able to enforce the tank carry as well as the main damage carry. Obviously, I think if you get like an Aurelia 3, like it'll be the most amount of health. But for the most part, yeah, no, Enforcer was kind of just too weird. It was either useless or it was just super easy to plug in and was overpowered. So I'm kind of fine with this. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I felt about Enforcer in the first place. The main thing that I have opinions about is they've changed how Hex Tech works. The way it works now is going to be a bit confusing because it's got two types of scaling. One is it does scale up based off of how many Hex Tech units you do have. So like 2 Hex Tech is going to get 120 shield every time the Hex explodes. And then, 170 at 4, 340 at 6, and then 600 at 8, which is so many. But then it also scales up based off of how many augments that you have at that point. So at 2, you'll start off at 120, but if you have 3 augments, then it'll be at 160. So this kind of scales up based off of how many augments you have and how many of the units you have. So it's kind of got a weird box of scaling. I don't know if the tooltip will actually show this, but this is kind of a good way of imagining it. So at 2 and then 1 augment. So at 2 Hex Tech and then 1 augment, you're going to have 120 shields, 140 at 2 augments, and then at 3 augments, you'll have 160, which is kind of good scaling. I think it wasn't nerfed at all at 2, 3, and 4, it seems. In fact, it was actually buffed, and then it's only nerfed at 8, and that's for the double magic damage as well. And the reason that I think this is kind of very important is because Lucian's already crazy powerful, and they nerfed the AD that comes from a lot of champions, but I think now you can kind of run the Sivir build, where you can run like a Shiv, Rageblade, and then like a Quicksilver Sash, except for on Lucian, and then throw in one and instead of like maybe having a random striker in there or something like that, you can throw in 1 Gangplank, and then suddenly you have twin shot with like a Lucian that's just popping off nonstop, because this magic damage that you get from it is going to just, I think it's nutty. If you run vertical Hex Tech, probably 6 Hex Tech, and then you run 1 twin shot, I think that he's going to pop off. I think Lucian is literally going to master the meta for this next patch. I think he's going to be insane. And the cool thing is you don't even need star level. It's entirely based off of the trait itself. This is my prediction. I think Lucian's going to be great. I'm going to be trying to run him on Thursday, so feel free to stop into the stream and see how it's working out for me. But I think Lucian's going to be insane, especially because with a Rageblade, he'd have plenty of time to ramp up, and then you'd have a lot of the magic damage coming from literally every other champion. I think this is just so much magic damage, and they're not prepared for how broken Lucian's going to be. Here is basically just every champion's attack damage was nerfed by 5 or 10. Like Vi was reduced by 10, Zeri's was reduced by 10, Echo's was reduced by 10. None of the magic people really got reduced, as well as I think Ezreal's attack speed got reduced because his attack damage was already really low. This is part of them also trying to say like, oh, we want to slow down how fast combat is. This is going to slightly weaken how strong your like Infinity Edges are, like immediately, how strong your Runons are really early. I think this is a good change. It'll make an item like a Deathblade a little bit more valuable, just because it felt like there was so much AD that you already could just use an IE. And I think Jin's going to be able to pop off a little bit more in this kind of a meta. Did Jin get... Yeah, his only got reduced by 5. So that's 16 at 3-star, but he's only going to be 2-star, so it's reduced by like 8. We also might see a more rise of Enchanter meta too. The entire meta is going to move more towards magic damage, and so having more magic resist and then running a Senna will be a little bit more beneficial if you're trying to run AD, but then also Senna's attack damage was reduced by 10. So we'll see how that really works out. I think we might see more Enchanter builds coming out as well, more consistently, or maybe you can go back to where it was like in PvE and slamming a Dragon's Claw really early, and this will kind of like help you save a lot of health early on, because I imagine a lot of people are going to be running a very early brand carry just to transition into like probably an Ari or even Malzahar. I think Malzahar is still going to be all right. He still does a lot of damage. Caitlyn as a 1-star's attack speed is also improved by 0.5. This is like an 8% attack speed increase, which will be kind of cool, especially if you give her like a Sojourns, maybe a Rageblade, and then a Runons. I think she can actually pop off a lot. And I think the intention here was that maybe she can even be one of your 1-cost carries. I think people are ignoring how weak Kassadin is. Kassadin to me feels like the only 1-cost carry that can't do any carry potential. Like, I can't think of a 1-cost that does any worse than Kassadin. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe someone can show me a Kassadin build, but I feel like Kassadin's the one that... I feel like he's so bad people don't even realize how bad he is because he's so forgettable. As far as like a permanent fixture in your comp, maybe I'm crazy, but that's how it feels. So here they super nerfed a lot of the Warwick stuff. His healing on hit was reduced by 5 at 2-star and 10 at 3-star, so he's just healing significantly less. And then Quinn was also, her disarm is a little bit less, her damage is reduced, so they tried to really nerf the Warwick reroll comp here, as well as, like I was saying, they kind of buffed Swain a little bit. He just does a little bit more damage and a little bit more healing. They improved it both by like 25 at 1-star, 50 at 2-star, and then nothing at 3-star. Wait, his hand's damage does 50 more damage at 3-star. Now this will obviously scale with ability power. I'm sure you can probably almost do the Imperial build that you did with him, but maybe Socialite now. That'd be kind of crazy, is running a Socialite 3 Swain. That sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. I imagine you just go full damage and then maybe throw a Shiv on some other unit. Yeah, Rabadon's Jewel Gauntlet, maybe IE? I don't even know. I think Swain might become way more useful than he used to be, at least as an item carrier, and then you can give him to another unit, or maybe even as a tank. Who knows? Aurelia's mana was increased from 30 to 40. This will make her, that's 25% more. It's actually 33% more mana that now she has to do. That's a whole auto. Of course, once she kills someone, her reset's instant, but this is a couple more autos where she, like if she gets stuck on like your Leona, maybe with a Bramble Vest on her, yeah, this gives your Jhin or your Draven a little bit more chance to just like keep on wailing on her, which I think is super awesome. As well as her Blade Surge does a little bit less damage, 50 at 3-star, which I mean her 3-star is already super overpowered. You're not winning against that, but 10 at 2-star and 15 at 1-star, because 1-star Aurelia is way more useful than a 1-star 4-cost should be. Like a 1-cost Aurelia at stage 4, like early stage 4 or maybe late stage 3, it was just way too overpowerful if you just got lucky with an Aurelia and you happen to have like an IE or a Last Whisper on you, and then one Socialite. So you just throw in a Gnar and, she's doing so much damage. With the 5 costs, there's not much I want to talk about. They made Galio feel a little bit better. Jace got reduced to damage a little bit. His 3-star got reduced by like 50% ranged attack bonus, but I mean, you're not winning against the 3-star ranged Jace anyways, so who cares? But they did change how Silco works, especially Silco 3, where now at 2-star, he gets 1 second added to every unit that he injects, so they have a little bit chance to live longer and actually do more damage, as well as just slightly less chance that you're going to kill your entire team. The amount of times that I've been watching people play an Arcanist build and they had this just like unkillable Vex, and then the Vex just is gone out of nowhere, and it's because their Silco killed it, it's too much. So at least having 1 second more on each unit, I think that will give a lot more value at 2-star Silco. Guys, stop putting blue buff on Silco. Stop putting Shojuns on Silco. You're going to kill your entire team, which I think is funny, but your team's not strong enough, especially if you're building a tanky Vex. Vex is not a burst damage champion. Do not itemize Silco with a stall comp. It doesn't make any sense. They did fix a bug with Zeri where she wouldn't go over 1.0 attack speed, which I think is funny. I didn't know that was a thing. It does make sense because like Rage Blade was essentially useless on her. Well, like I got up to 1 attack speed, but it's essentially useless. But then also they naturally reduced how much her casts do slightly. 1 at 1-star and 2 at 2 cost, and then 4 at 4 cost. But again, you're not really going to kill a Zeri 3. They also fixed Edge of Night to where like it was kind of acting weird during the period that they were invisible, where they wouldn't really do anything, and now they can do stuff, which is fine. It's going to work now how it's supposed to work. In the small changes, I don't really want to go too in depth just because there's not a whole lot of game changers here. I mean, that's why they're small changes. Something I want to talk about is that Sharpshooters, the damage reduction is reduced by another 6%. So Sharpshooter is going to be a little bit weaker. I still think Twin Shot is going to be super overpowered, especially because like I was saying, I still think Lucian with Hextech is going to be super overpowered this next set. I think he's going to be one of the most contested champions, and I don't even think you need to go 3-star with him. I think you can go 2-star and then just level up. He'll probably be a secondary carry at some point, but I think that him with items, especially like an early stage 3, go 6, roll down, get a Lucian 2, I think he's going to be overpowered. I don't see how you beat that. Smoke Bomb for Assassins is now increased to 70% max health. That's just so that Edge of Night doesn't proc at the same time as Smoke Bomb, so you get the double usage like you're supposed to. Like I said, Ezreal is now a little bit slower, only by 2% for each time he uses his magical shot. Sejuani has a little bit more health, and Corki is a little bit weaker. Not too crazy much. Yeah. And finally, Draven's axes do less damage. I think they said that his axes were doing almost more damage than than his actual auto attack. And as an AD champion, that doesn't entirely make sense, especially with VIP Draven. So now his damage is reduced a little bit, only at 1 and 2 star. At 3 star, he's still insanely overpowered. And it's reduced by 20 at 1 star and 25 at 2 star. So what do I think about this patch update? I think it's really great for the meta. I think it's going to feel a lot better because it's not going to be like, oh, you land Aurelia, even Aurelia 1 early, and suddenly you have accepted that you're going to lose. I think even, like I said, Lucian's going to be overpowered, but I think even Lucian's destroyable, especially with, like I said, maybe like a Dragon Claw early. If you go for that, I think it's going to be a way more valuable item, as well as frontline hasn't mattered super much in this set so far. And I think that now paying attention to who your frontline is going to be more important. So like whether you're running bruisers or whether you're running bodyguards, kind of like how you work that together with establishing a good backline. I think Jin's going to be more valuable. I think you're just going to get a lot more value out of items like Rage Blade or anything that's like a slow combat item. So like a lot of your tank items are going to get a lot more value instead of just trying to burst down your opponents constantly. I like it. I think everyone's going to have way more fun in this next patch instead of dying in 2 seconds. I honestly am very excited. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I have been thinking about doing these little patch rundowns recently, so I appreciate you watching it. If you enjoyed it and you want to hang out with me, I stream every Tuesday and Thursday here on the YouTube channel. Maybe consider hitting that subscribe button and coming by and talking to me sometime. I'm always down with answering questions, especially for beginners. So yeah, feel free to come by, and I'll see you guys there. Peace.